This broadcast highlights the news-making headlines in the land of the brave and beyond, ranging from current affairs to community stories, sports and economic news. He was one of Africa's longest-serving leaders after spending more than 3 decades in power. The mass trial of the 465 members of Front for Change and Concord in Chad rebel group started in February in the capital N'Djamena behind closed doors. Remember to engage with these stories on our social media throughout the broadcast. Visual news coming up after the break.
Flex is your health and fitness show that focuses on the health of the mind, body and spirit. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na.
Yesterday's Independence Day celebrations ended in chaos when citizens flocked to the VIP tent to scramble for food, following President Hage Geingo's announcement that they could have the food intended for the dignitaries. There was no order and every man for himself. Now the event was hosted in Oneuptwo and people rushed to the tent that was meant for VIPs to scramble for food. Tuyemo Haidula and Enzo Amwele report. The Minister of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform, Carl Schlatwein, is in New York for the second ever United Nations Water Conference, focused on reviewing the implementation of the UN Decade for Action and Water Sanitation. The Namibian delegation also includes the Prime Minister Sarah Kongelo Amadila, as well as Dr. Elijah Ngurare from the Water Ministry's Department of Water Affairs and Maria Amakali, Director of Water Resource Management. In this short interview, Schlatwein explains Namibia's intention to elevate water in terms of climate change mitigation at the United Nations. This video is courtesy of the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform.
Here to attend the water conference. It's in fact the second water conference. The first one was held 46 years ago. And eventually now we are here to again attend a UN water conference, which is a pivotal point in our quest to not only achieve all the social development goals, but also to look into the future and see how climate change and water are related and should be managed. Now, from that vantage point, we as the developed world, or as Africa through AMCOM, have the view that climate change to a large extent is actually related to water, and it is driven by the availability of water. Whether we talk about floods, whether we talk about melting glaciers, whether we talk about droughts, whether we talk about dwindling rivers, flooding rivers, it is all related to water. But we have realized that water does not play a central role in the agenda of climate change. It still is judged as a matter that must be discussed in terms of a management plan for a scarce resource. We believe it is much more than that. Water, in fact, is an existential commodity. Without life is not possible, and equally important, without which any social economic development is not possible. And it is either the catalyst or the impediment of development.
Namibia had a chaotic Independence Day littered with allegations of heavy-handed police abuse against protesting unemployed youth. The daily newspapers highlight and review the events of yesterday and other news. Stick around.
Active Kids is an initiative under the MyZone brand that aims to provide exciting and easy activities and fun stories. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na. Active Kids, where we actively invest in your future.
Let's get into the newspaper review. Namibian Sun leads with yesterday's arrests of opposition figures Saddam Amshelelo, Ina Hengari and Dimbulukeni Nauyoma, which analysts have attributed to declining civil liberties in the country. The paper also reports that on a chaotic Independence Day littered with allegations of police abuse against protesting unemployed youth, President Hage Geingob outlined that independence without economic emancipation could breed threats to the country's peace and security. Geingob made the remarks during his keynote address at the 33rd Independence Day celebrations at Oneuptwo, some 800 kilometers from the chaos in Windhoek. This after police tried to disperse a peaceful but unauthorized demonstration in Katutura, where unemployed youth demanded an end to their miseries. On its page 4, the news from northern Namibia, the paper reports that Namibia's high unemployment rates, particularly among the youth, are causing national leaders sleepless nights. This is according to Deputy Prime Minister and International Relations Corporation Minister Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, who spoke at a recent fundraising gala at Ondangwa. Her speech came days before several people were arrested at the national unemployment protests held in Windhoek yesterday, coinciding with the Independence Day celebrations. In Republicans' lead story, despite Namibia and others Southern African countries' opposition to a bill which the importation of hunting trophies to the United Kingdom have banned, the British Parliament on Friday voted in favour of it. Although approved by members of Parliament, the hunting trophies bill will however now go further through the upper house of the British Parliament investigation. The ban will on about 6,000 species apply and will trophies of animals such as lions, rhinos and include elephants. Those who the bill supported fear that it could be blocked after more than 30 amendments have been submitted. Now, according to the paper's page 2, Namibia Economic Freedom Fighters Komiza Amshelelo, Popular Democratic Movement Member of Parliament Hengari, and Affirmative Repositioning co-founder Nauyoma were arrested at a peaceful march against high rates of unemployment, which was not authorized by police. Now, the High Court compounded matters when, in its ruling delivered at 4 a.m. yesterday morning, it dismissed an urgent interim interdict filed by Amshelelo to proceed with the peaceful march. According to Agamana Zeitung, a delegation led by Prime Minister Sarah Koongelwa Madila, accompanied by Minister of Agriculture Karl Schlatwein and his staff on March the 19th, traveled to New York. On March 20, Neville Herter, ambassador of Namibia at the United Nations, during a briefing to government, officials and those participating at the UN Water Conference, informing about the preparations for the conference, Herter stressed that the importance of the UN Water Conference as an opportunity to advance political priorities in the water sector. Schlatwein also reported on Namibia's work as outgoing president of the African Ministers' Council on Water. On the paper's page 2, it reports that Professor Andre Dupisani recently expressed concern about what he sees as a lack of consistency between policy principles and the international treaties to which Namibia is a party, and the country's actual ability to meet the goals set out in these instruments. We continue with the Namibian newspaper after the break.
The Agenda is a weekly national affairs interview program hosted every Sunday by Namibian Sun editor Toyvon Jabela, featuring a panel of high-profile newsmakers, analysts and experts. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact agenda@synergy.com.na. The Agenda, focused on today's conversation.
The Namibian newspaper reports that the First Lady of Namibia, Monica Gengos, has rejected claims that she is involved in political appointments by President Hage Geingob, describing the allegations as untrue, malicious, and demoralizing. Gengos' comments are seemingly related to complaints among some SWAPO leaders about her strong influence in Geingob's presidency. The First Lady denied suggestions that she wants to become Namibia's president. Retired Evangelical Lutheran Church in Namibia Bishop Josaphat Shangala yesterday used Independence Day celebrations to take a swipe at the LGBTQI+ community. He said God has created males and females and that anything outside of this is an insult to God's creation and image. Shangala expressed his gratitude over Namibia being a peaceful and democratic country in which churches and worshippers are allowed to proclaim the word of God with no consequences. Buoyed by the massive turnout at a fully packed Oneuptwo Center in Otapi, President Hage Geingob yesterday said after 33 years of sustained progress, there is still work to be done for the country to achieve its goals. New Era reports that in his speech to celebrate Namibia's 33rd Independence Day, Geingob said, "I am fully aware that after 33 years of sustained progress and numerous milestones, there is still work to be done for us to achieve dreams and aspirations outlined in the national development plans," he said. On to page 3. 4 minor girls were allegedly raped in different incidents last week. The youngest was 7 years old while the oldest was 15. The 4 cases were brought to the attention of the police and have arrested the perpetrators. In a separate incident, a 28-year-old woman died on Sunday night in Oshuarongo after she was allegedly stabbed by her boyfriend. She suffered 13 stab wounds on her back, shoulder, chest, and left elbow. According to MarketWatch, South African inflation expectations rose at the start of 2023, suggesting the central bank may keep interest rates higher for longer. Average inflation expectations for the year increased to 6.3% in the first quarter from 6.1% previously, according to a survey conducted by the Stellenbosch-based Bureau for Economic Research. The rate of price growth for 2024 is now seen at 5.8% and will probably slow to 5.5% a year later, the poll analysts, business people, labor unions, and households shows. Average 5-year inflation expectations remain unchanged at 5.5%. Now, Fly Etosha says it intends to be airborne by June. More on this in economic news coming shortly.
In Business 7, you get news on current economic, financial, and business matters in Namibia. The weekly show features interviews with experts and in-depth analysis of burning issues in a way that caters for ordinary Namibians and business connoisseurs alike. For news-related or advertising queries, please contact B7 at synergy.com.na.
Getting into economic news, Fly Etosha says it intends to be airborne by June if all its ducks are in order. These are the sentiments of Representative William Ekanjo, who said the company has every intention of becoming operational soon, despite an earlier bid by local aviation company Fly Namibia to challenge its plans. Fly Namibia has since abandoned its objections. According to Ekanjo, Fly Etosha ticks all the boxes in terms of regulatory requirements to become an airline. Fly Namibia's complaint was simply due to the competitive nature of the aviation sector, he said. Documents were submitted through Fly Namibia and West Air's attorneys, Ellis & Partners, opposing an application by Fly Etosha for a non-scheduled air transport service license. Now, according to the documents, Ekanjo failed dismally to provide sufficient proof that he will be able to render a safe, satisfactory, and reliable air service in respect of continuity, frequency, punctuality, reasonable charges, and general efficiency. Ekanjo admitted that Fly Etosha may not immediately acquire all aircraft types it deemed necessary for its operations, but said this was not a concern for it to get operational approval. Let's head into the economic indicators. The Namibian dollar has dropped in value in relation to the US dollar, euro, and British pound, while remaining consistent at 2 Namibian dollars and 68 cents, trading for 1 Chinese yuan. As there was no local trading on the NSX yesterday, stock prices remain unchanged. Overall index closed 2.26% higher than the previous close, while stock prices remain unchanged. Copper prices showed an increase of 0.69%, while other commodity prices have dropped. Now, Tanzania has confirmed its first ever cases of the Marburg virus. Stay with NMH at 1 for an update.
Africa Good Morning is a current affairs program that brings you the latest from Southern Africa and beyond. News, economics, sport, weather, interviews, and so much more. For any advertising or news-related queries, contact agm at synergy.com.na. Africa Good Morning, bringing Africa to you.
Heading into Africa-centered news, Tanzania has confirmed its first ever cases of Marburg, a high fatality viral hemorrhagic fever with symptoms broadly similar to those of Ebola, the World Health Organization said. Now, the WHO said in a late Tuesday statement that the confirmation of the disease by Tanzania's National Public Laboratory followed the death of 5 of 8 people in Tanzania's northwest Kagera region who developed symptoms which include fever, vomiting, bleeding, and renal failure. Among the dead was a health worker, the WHO said. The 3 who survived were getting treatment, with 161 contacts being monitored. The efforts by Tanzania's health authorities to establish the cause of the disease is a clear indication of the determination to effectively respond to the outbreak, said Mashidiso Mweti, WHO Regional Director for Africa. We are working with the government to rapidly scale up control measures to halt the spread of the virus. With a fatality rate as high as 88%, Marburg is from the same virus family responsible for Ebola and is transmitted to people from fruit bats. It then spreads through contact with bodily fluids of infected people. Symptoms include high fever, severe headache, and malaise, which typically develop within 7 days of infection, according to the WHO. At least 10 fishermen drowned on Tuesday when a Moroccan fishing trawler sank off the coast of disputed Western Sahara. 5 sailors were rescued while 2 crew members were still missing, the authorities said. With such a search underway, the incident happened in the province of Al Serd, 220 kilometers away from Dakhla city in the state-run Moroccan news agency. Now, this is what they said. It was not yet clear what caused the trawler to sink. Western Sahara, which is disputed between Morocco and the Algeria-backed Polisario movement, has a long coastline and access to rich fishing waters. We start off in Afghanistan as we head into international news shortly. At least 12 people were killed in Afghanistan and Pakistan by a strong earthquake felt across thousands of kilometers by the region, and it appeared on Wednesday to have dodged the mass casualties usually associated with a tremor of such a scale. The United States Geological Survey said the magnitude 6.5 quake was centered near Jurm in northeastern Afghanistan. By the depth of 187 kilometers, mitigated extensive damage. The quake, which struck around 9:30 p.m. Kabul time on Tuesday and lasted more than 30 seconds, was felt from Central Asia to New Delhi in India, more than 2,000 kilometers away. It was a powerful earthquake and we feared maximum damage due to the intensity. That's why we issued an alert, Bilal Faizi, a spokesperson for Pakistan's emergency rescue 1122 service in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, told AFP. Now, the region is frequently hit by quakes, especially in the Hindu Kush mountain range, which lies near the junction of the Erusian and Indian tectonic plates. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders on Tuesday signed a law targeting the trans community, prohibiting transgender people from using the restroom that matches their gender identity at public schools. The bill, signed by the Republican governor, who describes herself as a conservative reformer, applies to multi-person restrooms and locker rooms at public schools and charter schools serving pre-kindergarten through grade 12. The law requires schools to provide reasonable accommodations that include single-person restrooms and changing areas. School authorities that violate violates the law can face fines of at least $1,000, and parents can also file lawsuits to enforce the measure. The governor has said she will sign laws that focus on protecting and educating the kids, not indoctrinating them, and believes the schools are no place for the radical left's woke, in quotes, agenda. Alexa Henning, a spokesperson for Sanders, told Reuters this in a statement. Now, Namibia had 26 medals after 2 days of the South African Sports Association for the Physically Disabled National Championships. We'll be heading into that as we head into local sports shortly.
Take a load off and tune into another episode of Brave Namibia as we take a look at both ordinary and extraordinary Namibians. Brave Namibia is broadcasted on NTV Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. and Oneuptwo.com, as well as broadcasted on the following Facebook platforms on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Republican, Allgemeine Zeitung, Namibian Sun, and all Namibia Media Holdings pages. For more information, contact the Brave team at brave@synergy.com.na. Brave Namibia, for the ordinary and extraordinary Namibians.
AgriMonitor is jou weeklikse landboukundige program wat jou die jongste nuus in die landbouverwante bedryf en onderwerpe wat daaraan gekoppel is, bring. Vir enige advertensie of nuusverwante navraag, kontak agrimonitor@synergy.com.na.
Heading into local sport, Namibia had 26 medals after 2 days of the South African Sports Association for the Physically Disabled National Championships, which will conclude in Cape Town today. DStv Premiership giants Orlando Pirates reset to make an imminent decision on the futures of 2 first-team stars, with the end of the 2022-23 campaign fast approaching. Excitement is building for this weekend's second edition of the PSG Capricorn Group ride, the Ridges Mountain Bike Race. This year, the number of riders has increased as interest from participants outside Namibia grew. The 3-day solo format event will comprise of 3 stages, starting and ending at Heya Lodge on the outskirts of Windhoek, with the first stage offering an easy introduction into the weekend. We'll be heading into international sports.
We are back again with another episode of your favorite show.
Scholars, varsity and the youth generation through zone, varsity and school news. If you'd like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact Zone at synergy.com.na.
Belarusian Arina Sabalenka said she struggled to understand the hate she encountered in the locker room amid strained relations between some players following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The world number 1 has previously said she has nothing against Ukrainian people and felt bad for them as Moscow's action rages on. Belarus has been in a staging area for the invasion, which Moscow calls a special military operation. Angola midfielder Nelson Daluz will miss out on the 2 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers for his country against Ghana after missing his flight to join up with the squad on Monday. The Portuguese-based player was involved in an accident on the motorway on his way to the airport and therefore missed his flight, with coach Pedro Goncalves moving quickly to replace him in the squad for the 2 Group E qualifiers against Black Stars. Liberia will present a tricky challenge for South Africa in their back-to-back Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers that gets underway at the Orlando Stadium on Friday. Bafana Bafana have the more accomplished squad, but that is certainly no guarantee of victory as they chase the 4 points they need to book a place in the Continental Finals in Ivory Coast in January. If you're just joining us, this is NMH at 1, and we'll get into the highlights from this afternoon's broadcast after this short break.
Kom kuier gerus elke Vrydag aan saam met Arjo Gert, waar hy vooruitskouing doen van wat op die sportvelde reg oor die wêreld gaan plaasvind. Daar word op die naweek se top internasionale sportgeleenthede gefokus en plaaslike sport in Namibië asook Suid-Afrika word in oënskou geneem. Die kenners praat saam en huidige asook oud spelers gee hul mening en ons hoor grootlik sommer uit die spreekwoordelike perd se bek. Niemand weet met sekerheid wat die naweek op die sportveld gaan gebeur nie, maar iemand weet wel watter faktore die uitslae kan beïnvloed. Ons praat met daardie iemand wat weet, en soms word geheim ook uitgelaat. Vrydaande is ons in die tonnel gereed om uit te draf. Dit is jou Vrydag afspraak wat jou ingelig gaan hou alvordat die spelers uit die tonnel opdraf. Sport is ons passie. Sien jou in die tonnel.
Kaap vol hoop vertel stories van die Kaap en sy mense en uit die stories en ervarings deel ons mooi en unieke plekke om te sien en te ervaar. Kaap vol hoop gaan waar die Kaapenaars gaan en gaan kuier waar die Kaapenaars kuier. Van die strande tot die wynlande en die sportvelde tot die restaurante. Ons kuier dalk sommer ook in iemand se kombuis vir daai familieresep van ouma. Ons eet die Kaapse tradisionele kosse en drink van sy beste wyne. Kaap vol hoop gesels met die gewone Kaapenaar en soms ook met die meer bekendes, maar week vir week vertel ons elkeen sy eie unieke storie op sy unieke manier. Kaap vol hoop kyk ook uit vir die Namibiërs in die Kaap. Sommige kom kuier net en sommige maak die Kaap hulle nuwe tuiste. Namibiërs in die Kaap gesels saam met Kaap vol hoop en deel self die mooi, die uniek en lekker wat op hul pad kom. In alles is Kaap vol hoop 'n program wat die mooi en die lag na vore wil bring en 'n program waar ons mekaar kan opbou en leer. Daar is hoop. Daar is 'n Kaap vol hoop.
This has been NMH at 1. Let's get into the highlights from this afternoon's broadcast. Tanzania has confirmed its first ever cases of Marburg, a high fatality viral hemorrhagic fever with symptoms broadly similar to those of Ebola, the World Health Organization has said. At least 12 people were killed in Afghanistan and Pakistan by a strong earthquake felt across thousands of kilometers, but the region appeared on Wednesday to have dodged the mass casualties usually associated with a tremor of such a scale. Namibia had 26 medals after 2 days of the South African Sports Association for the Physically Disabled National Championships, which conclude in Cape Town today. Those have been your highlights. Remember to tune in every weekday at 1 p.m. to spend your lunch hour with NMH at 1, catching up on the latest news in Namibia, Africa and the world, ranging from current affairs to economic news, sports and international headlines. It's goodbye from us in studio. See you tomorrow.